Slip, slop, slap, Nintendo is back with another Nindy showcase. And when they kick it off with Wargroove, you know things are heating up fast. But what I didn't expect is that by the end of this showcase, things would be getting so steamy with Steamworld Quest. Now, in case you can't tell, I'm pretty excited for this game. And today I want to share why I'm so excited with it, about it. And two, I've been doing a little bit of digging on it. Some Steamworld digging, if you will. And I just want to share with my findings and why I'm so excited about them. Excited about everything today. This is definitely the most excited I've been for a Steamworld game. There's a good reason for that. And that's because I enjoy playing the other games, but there's always one thing that just kind of pushes me away a little bit and says, Eric, you can't 100% commit your love to this as much as you want to because they're good games. There's one thing that pushes me away, and that's the setting. To me, like, the setting that I love, the setting that I grew up with, and the thing that hooks me is fantasy. Like, if I have a choice between Fallout and Elder Scrolls, I'm 100% going Elder Scrolls. Like, Fallout games, I generally drop out like after about 3 hours. Elder Scrolls games, I fall into those pits and you can't get me back out of them. So when it came to Steamworld, I was a little bit hesitant. But then when they announced this new one, they said, Eric, it's gonna be an RPG. You love RPGs. And I'm like, yes, sir, I do. And then they said, Eric, it's in a fantasy setting. And I was just like, all right, where do I sign? And I think one of the most fantastic things about the Steamworld series in general is that they always have really good, quirky writing. And I'm excited to see where they take this, because this is an RPG. This has to have more writing. It needs a decent story revolving around this gameplay. And so I'm excited to see what they can do with more writing in this game, more dialogue to kind of sink my teeth into. Also, I don't know if you got a load of this music, but like it started up and it was just like, oh yeah, like this is taking me to Hobbiton. Let's go, this is good. And then all of a sudden the metal just starts getting pumped into there. I'm like, oh, rocking, like, let's do this. This sounds really cool. And so like, I hope that those kind of themes continue through this game. It's a really nice mix between that kind of RPG vibes to, I don't know, slaying through metal corpses vibes. Is that what we're going to be doing? Yeah. The last thing here that just had me grabbing that Nindy showcase plate and licking it clean until there was nothing left on there is the combat. Like, the combat to this, first of all, like when the first glance of it, I was just like, oh, it kind of reminds me of like Battle Chasers Nightwall or maybe Child of Light. I guess it's maybe the 3 on however many enemies kind of looked that it had going for it. And then I just kind of got my goggles on and looked a little bit deeper. I'm like, hold on. That's card combat. They're bringing back card combat. I was just like, yes, this looks like Bait and Kaitos. This looks like any of those kind of deck building games, like Mega Man, Battle Network. Yes, sign me up for this, please. And then I'm kind of just scrolling through the comment section, as we like to do, guys. You know what it's like. So there I am, scrolling through the comment section of Steamworld Quest, and Image and Form have commented on it, and they said basically, and in fact I'm going to read the whole thing here. They say, we would like to thank everyone in the comments for your kind comments, and everyone at Nintendo for helping us reach out with Steamworld Quest. This game is very special to us, and we are confident that you will like it too. If you previously enjoyed classic JRPG games, or games like Mega Man Battle Network and Bait and Kaitos, guys, like, stay tuned for more details. I'm just like, oh my god, what are they doing? They literally just took it for word for what I wanted and just pasted it in the comment section. I'm not sure, like, I had to go check my backyard to make sure that the word's standing out there. I don't know. Are they Australian? They're not Australian. Like, I'm not even kidding here. Like, 3 minutes before I read this comment, I'm talking to Nat. I'm like, oh, this so reminds me of Bait and Kaitos. And like, I really want to mention something about Battleman. Mega Man Battle Network on the episode. And then I'm reading through this comment, I'm just like, my jaw just hit the table, like it made a thud. And then I said to her, no one is going to believe me, so I probably shouldn't even mention it in the episode, but I did because I had to. It's so good. Anyway, I feel like when it comes to the card combat, we have to kind of mention something here, because I think it might actually turn a lot of people off, surprisingly. Like myself, I'm like totally into it. Like, I think a lot of the negative opinions kind of come from Paper Mario Color Splash, which like I liked. Again, not as much as Thousand Year Door, but I liked. So I think that's kind of one of the places it comes from. I'd like to know what other people, the games that they don't like that are card games, because to me, like every card game that I've got into just hooked that into my veins. I've loved the card game RPGs are an underrated genre. While we're on the topic of Paper Mario, talking about Thousand Year Door, it very much reminds me of the start of that, or I guess there's lots of games that do this, but for me, the way it like opens a storybook and it's like, yeah, we're reading a story. This RPG is all told in a novel. I love that idea. And I think that kind of does it for the million reasons that I'm looking forward to this game. Anyway, it's about time that we kind of jumped into the weeds because there is a lot to go through this trailer, and I've just been kind of clawing it apart, and it's mostly the combat, honestly. That's the part that I'm most interested in, and I think that might be the most information that we got out of this. Let's stop speculating, let's get into it. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that it's obviously card combat, and the reason that I'm looking forward to it. But if you look down the bottom, obviously you see a bunch of cards lined up. And at first, my first thought with this was that this is a deck we're picking from one of these cards, and that is what we're going to choose to play. But it's not the case. It seems this is the turn that has already been decided. In other words, when we're having a 3-on-3 battle, you see 6 cards down the bottom. 3 are your allies and 3 are the enemy cards that are already happening. That seems to be the turn order. And you'll notice that the cards on the left side are always grayed out, while the cards on the right side are lit up, meaning that we're that far through the turn order before I'm guessing we maybe get to pick another card. And we can confirm this by seeing it in multiple instances. We'll see with a 3v3 battle with 6 cards, or maybe a 1v3 battle, there'll be 4 cards. This is always the case, except there is one case when it's not. And that's when we see 3 cards down the bottom, yet there's 6 of us on the field. And I believe that is because this is a surprise encounter. You'll notice that we're on the opposite side of the field for this encounter, while the enemy is on the side that we normally are. And so obviously the cards down the bottom, which we'll get into later why we can tell these are enemy cards as well, they all appear to be just the enemy's turn. Actually, you know what? Let's get into why we know it's the enemy cards right now. So if you notice at the top left corner, there is a skull icon, and the skull icon represents enemy cards. And you notice with our cards, we have either like a physical icon or a magical icon or a ranged icon. And this is how we can tell whose is whose. Also, our cards are coloured towards our characters, which we'll get into a little bit later on. Now, you may also notice a cog on the other side of our cards. As for what these do, I honestly haven't the foggiest. I've just got no idea what these do. I don't believe they've actually even showed us, because if you look at it, I don't see any cogs anywhere else on the screen apart from on these cards. And so I'm guessing that when we get into a bit more of a combat menu is maybe when we'll see how we actually use these cogs or earn them or anything. Like whether they might be like FP from Paper Mario. So like between save points, you just get a certain amount of FP or cog points to use, and so use them wisely. Or maybe it's like build up a certain amount of turns. So like if it costs 3 cogs, you've at least got to be battling for 3 turns before you can use that cog or use them. Unclear, we'll find out. Also sticking with the cards, because quite honestly this is the most interesting thing here, you'll notice that in the center of the cards we can actually see the damage. Now the damage that it actually does will always be in the center, and on the left side right next to the damage, if it does an elemental damage, that's where you will see that. And then on the right side, if it ever has any effects or debuffs the enemies, or like does 2 times attack, that's what you will see on the right side of your number. You've also probably noticed the barcode at the bottom of these cards. Yeah, that does nothing. If you actually pay careful attention, they're all the same barcode, so nothing too special there. I think the most interesting thing about everything we've gone over so far is that we don't actually get to see how we use these cards, how we pick these cards. We're about to go into a menu where we, I guess, get to choose what cards we have in our deck, but how they get decided from the deck, the order, and how they get placed down the bottom there in the first place, we honestly have no idea how that actually happens yet. So that we're still missing a menu in this combat system. Now, as for this book that I mentioned that holds all the cards, we get to actually learn quite a lot from this book. So if we pay careful attention here, you'll notice that on the right side, each character is making a deck of cards. So you'll see that it's 8 cards that they can have total. I guess the question that brings up is, does that mean there can only be like 8 turns in a battle? What happens when 8 turns are up? Because we have no cards left, does it just select them randomly at that stage, or is there some sort of default attack? I'm not 100% sure what the deal with that would be, but at this stage it kind of looks like we have 8 turns. Now the case obviously shows all the cards that we can kind of choose from, and you might actually notice that some of them are in stacks, and the number down the bottom is how many's left in that stack. Something that this tells us that I don't know if a lot of people will like is that you definitely run out of cards. It's not just pick up a card and then that's it. You can either choose to have it in your deck or not. No, it's pick up a card and when you use it, that's it. That card runs out. We did actually learn a little bit more from looking at the case here, and that's the character names and a little bit about what they do. So first of all, we have the character who I'm going to call the red character, the one who is in the armor, and their name is Amelie. They seem to be based mostly around physical attacks, as I guess you'd kind of expect there. And all their cards are red. So you'll notice whenever they have a card up, it's the red card. And then we have Copernica, who is the blue mage class. Obviously they're a magic user, all their spells seem to be magic. And that character seems to be exactly what you'd expect. The last one here might not be though. So the last one here is Galileo. So Galileo is the healer/defender class. All his cards seem to have the green color to them. And I'm not sure if you noticed this or not, but he's a little wind-up birdie that sits on his shoulder, which is really cool. Nothing important to the analysis, but I just thought that was really cool and unique and fun and bird. Ugh, keep going. So that kind of winds it up for the most part. Like obviously we know some other stuff, like you can see the status elements. They always, if you get affected with one, they sit below the health. And you can see what effects are going to happen thanks to the cards. You also notice the health. Obviously we have a lot of the early game footage here as well as late game, since we go from like, I mean obviously this is all just speculation, but we go from 65 health all the way up to in the thousands. And also right back then when we have the 65 health, you notice that we only have 2 party members. So that way I guess we kind of know, like assuming that the first 2 characters we're going to get here are Copernica and Amelie. Although Galileo can't really be that far behind, because you'll notice here that there's actually a section where he seems to be running along in a similar area, just a slightly different area to where we started. So I'm guessing this is the very next area to the starting area. The last interesting thing here that I could kind of note in this is that there appears to be a merchant type of character in the trailer. Or in other words, we notice a caravan sitting in the background that has Mercator written on it, which I 100% this has got to be some sort of merchant, some sort of selling place. It has a sign out the front. 100% this is somewhere where you're going to be buying goods from. Most likely cards, since the whole game seems to revolve around cards. Although I wouldn't write off other stuff, because like Steamworld games quite often have unique abilities that you attach and cogs and stuff to your characters, so I'm guessing all of that type of stuff's going to make a return, which is the details that I can't wait for, is that type of stuff, that more deeper type of stuff. This is obviously a very light overview that is kind of waved just over the trailer, and when they get deeper into this, when the game gets closer, I think we're going to learn a lot of these cool details to this game. The last thing I want to mention here is I will possibly be going over some more of the games. I'm just going to dive into them and see whether there's stuff that I can pull out of them that's worth it. But definitely these guys, the reason I jumped into them first, and Image and Form and their fantastic game, is because they really know how to do a trailer. They did a really good job here. I noticed some of the other trailers were very jumpy and they didn't really suit, I don't know if it's just my style, but I don't feel like some of it was a little bit disjointed. So we'll get into those trailers when we get to them. But for now, this is definitely one of the ones at the top of my list, along with War Group at the start there, that I really just wanted to dive into nice and early. Speaking of early, it is getting very late here, and today was 47 degrees. I think it might reach 47 degrees outside, so ridiculously hot. This tiny little sweatbox of a room is extremely hot, and if you see me sweating it up today, that is the reason why. And if I don't pass out before I do this finale, remember, for great Nintendo entertainment, you can count on me. Today's end screen is sponsored by Patron Chris. Now, Chris asked what my favorite game series of all time is. This is a really good question, Chris, and honestly, I just kind of spent today tearing myself apart, just going, I don't know what it is. And I think I finally settled on Paper Mario. And to me, it nails the most important part of gaming, and that's what I call WWW. It is the writing, it is the world, and it is the gameplay, because gameplay doesn't start with a W. Anyway, I might go deeper at that some point with you guys on Patreon, but for now, that's the end of my 20 seconds, about 20 seconds ago. Goodbye.